Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is Term 2B, and we are on Class 10. This is assignment, actually, we're going to be talking more about assignment 12. We don't really get to 13 today, I don't think. And hopefully talking about compound and complex sentences. Sorry, it is April 30th, and this is Jillian Percy. All right, the ways to contact us. You can call the studio, 1-800-465-7144. You can also talk to me at the office number, 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. Keep in mind that only works until we hit 4:30. After that, I think it's tricky. You can always reach me on email, jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. My other email is jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. If you have a Google account that you use, that is often how people share documents with me. For Facebook, I have capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you send me a message there, remember to make a friend request. Let me know your full name, what course you're registered in, and what assignment you are wanting help with. Because I've got 5 different courses, so it's a good idea for me to know what we're looking at. Then if you want to view classes from a previous day, there are 2 different YouTube channels. My YouTube channel is same name as Facebook, G. Percy Wassa, and there will be a playlist from Term 1A, which was September, October, and then there's the playlist that we're doing right now, which is like April, May, and a little bit of June. So they more or less have the same content. Sometimes I don't get to something on one day, and it ends up taking the next day before I get to it. That's what's happening today, for example. But more or less, it's the same content. And then over here at the bottom, you'll see WASA Distance Education YouTube channel. That's the school channel that has all the playlists from all the courses that all the teachers have taught this year. But because I've already taught it once this year, we didn't want that to get too busy. So what's up there right now is just the playlist from September and October. Like I said, it doesn't make a huge difference, but that's just something to be mindful of when you're looking at the courses, okay? So my most commonly asked question is, hey, how do I hand in assignments? Generally, whatever you do, you're going to eventually email it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Not my email, this email. The reason is because then the secretary can log that you submitted the work. It goes in the data bank and everybody can see, oh, yep, so-and-so has handed in assignment 13, assignment 14, assignment 15. The other thing is if anything happened with the teachers, nobody can see my email, but because it's in the student work, several people have access to that and could pull it up if they needed it. On your physical page, make sure your full name is on it, your course name, the assignment name and number, and if an assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label which one is which right at the top of the page, and generally you can include them both in the same email. Now, sometimes people want information on the rough draft or some feedback, and they'll do that first. That's fine, just let me know it's what you're doing so I know what I'm marking, okay? If an assignment doesn't ask for a rough draft, please don't hand one in, because there's no reason for me to end up marking 2 different versions of the assignment when I don't have to, right? It's more work for you as well. So there are still multiple ways to hand in assignments. If you have a learning center in your community, then you go to the DEC there, you can ask them to scan it and send it in to me. Hang on to the originals, you'll need them for the end of the course. You can also fax it to me, 1-800-463-7852 if you're in Ontario, or 1-877-990-2023 if you are in the rest of Canada. If you are creating your documents on some sort of processing program, a lot of people just send me an email and add the assignment as an attachment. Some people will do the thing with Google Docs where they'll create it in Google Docs and just share it with me. That's fine as well. If you do that, make sure to include me as somebody who can view or edit it. Otherwise, I won't be able to see the actual assignment. I'll just see the link, okay? You can mail it to me, but I really strongly suggest that you don't, because things get lost and it takes a long time. If you do, for some reason, decide to mail it to me, hang on to your originals, okay? You can also take a photograph and then send that photograph to me either through Facebook or through email. If you do this, make sure the photograph is really clear and that you're taking it as big as possible. Okay, don't send me a tiny little photo because I won't be able to read the print. And if I try and expand it, it just gets all pixelated. It works fine on your end, but what I see has degraded a little bit is what happens, and I won't be able to see it at the same clarity that you can. It's best to send or share it as an attachment rather than just putting it into the body of the email. For some reason, what'll happen is it comes up huge and I'll see like a tiny little corner of your page and I have to play with it for quite a while to get it down to a size I can see. The best thing, if you can't get your DEC to scan it, is to use a scanner app on your phone and then send that to me. It does a much better quality than just taking a photograph, but it's not really that much harder than taking a photograph. So I use Adobe Scan, you install it on your phone, and then you open it up. And then just like you would take a photograph, you kind of center it over your document. You can see there's little blue dots that line up with the corners. You could play with them if you need to get them just right. You can also adjust the borders after you finished to clip out some of the table if it came up. And then you would keep on repeating steps 2 or 3 until you've gotten all the assignment into that document. Tap continue, preview everything. Is it clear? Did your hand shake so now it's too blurry to read? Then if you're happy with it, hit Save PDF, give it a name, and then save it in some fashion. You can save it to Google Drive, you can save it to Dropbox, you probably can save it to your phone, but you might have a lot of storage, and then send it to me in an email as an attachment, okay? We are currently in week 3 of this 9-week course. There is today's class and then tomorrow's class. There's no class on Friday. Remember that the last day of our term is June 13th, which is generally reserved for exams only. This course does not have an exam. So generally the last day I would be accepting assignments is June 12th. What we do have instead of an exam is a very long culminating activity or kind of a big final project, which will take probably between 5 to 10 hours to complete. I've given you a broad range because it depends on how fast you read and write. Some people do those things very quickly and could whip it off quite quickly. Other people like to take their time and do like one assignment each day until they've got it all finished. You don't want to leave this assignment to the last day, especially if you work full time. It will just take you way too long to complete, okay? Then once you start Unit 3 or 4, your best bet is to ask me for the culminating activity now. You've got time to work on it. It's worth 20% of your overall grade. That means if you have a D before you do it and you do an amazing job, you could easily raise your grade to a B. However, it goes the same way. If you only have, like, if you're not quite passing the course, but you don't do the culminating activity, you won't be able to pass. So you really want to finish it, okay? Now, if you are one of our potential grads, and you probably would know that because Ronaldo would have been talking to you all along, I strongly recommend completing all your assignments by May 30th so that I have time to do the marking, send you the marks, write up a report card. If there's something you need to redo, you've got time to do it. I currently have 134 students registered in this course and over 200 students registered in all my courses. There is no way for me to complete all the marking in one day or even in 1 week if everybody decides to hand all their assignments in at the end. So that's the other thing. Every week on Friday when you're finished your stuff, hand things in. Or if you do your work on the weekends, hey, hand everything in on Monday. Don't wait till you finish an entire unit because it will just take way too long for me to mark things, okay? It's way easier to mark an assignment or two than to mark 20 assignments. Okay, our learning goals for today are we are going to try to write complete and correct sentences, including how to use conjunctions to write compound and complex sentences. We are going to revise drafts to ensure that ideas are presented in a logical order, to add details, delete unnecessary information, and ensure that tone and level of language is appropriate to the audience and purpose. And also use appropriate strategies to revise and edit work. You know, one of the things with this course is assignment 12 and assignment 13 work together. I think I'm doing a little bit of assignment 12 today. I'm kind of have to take a quick look at what I'm doing here. All right, we're going to move on and see what we've got. Okay, so we're going to start with working on sentences. And the reason is these are just the building block of everything you write. If you can write a good sentence, I just find it makes all your writing really strong. Whereas if you are struggling at the sentence level, obviously it's going to be so much harder when I start to ask you to do like 1 page or 2 page essays. So that's why we're spending so much time talking about sentences, okay? So to write longer sentences, you're almost always going to start to use conjunctions. Conjunctions are a type of word that joins words or phrases or two smaller simple sentences. There are three main types of conjunctions. There are coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and correlative conjunctions. Now, we're not going to talk about the correlative. They're kind of a specialty one. We're just going to talk about the coordinating and the subordinating today, okay? To start with, there are only 7 coordinating conjunctions, and I always use the acronym FANBOYS to remember it. So F is for, A is for and, N is for nor, B is for but, O is for or, Y is for yet, and S is for so. And we use those to join two simple sentences that are a complete thought all on their own, but we want to join them. Okay. Now, you can also use them to join words. So here, I've got some examples where I'm joining words. Today we are eating turkey and mashed potatoes. Becky and Susan are coming over to watch movies. He was handsome but mean. I would rather swim or read on a hot day. Now, these don't count as compound sentences because I'm just joining words, not sentences, okay? And then I can also be joining phrases, okay? These may be noun phrases or verb phrases. The new kitten chased the red laser pointer and pounced on the pretend mouse. She skated with a great deal of speed, but without much precision. I like to read in the park or at the coffee shop. I cannot pretend to like your new boyfriend nor his odd roommate. Now, again, these are longer sentences, but they are not yet a compound sentence because at the beginning, each one of these is a full sentence, but the end isn't. Pounced on a pretend mouse is not a full sentence by itself. Without much precision is not a sentence by itself. At the coffee shop is not a sentence. A compound sentence only works if it's two full sentences being joined. So the other phrase that we use to call a simple independent sentence is an independent clause. And that means it's got a subject, a verb, and it expresses a complete thought. Okay? So I'm just going to give you a quick example of just an independent clause like, I like pizza. Okay? I've got my subject in the I, I've got my verb in the word like, and it expresses a complete thought. So if I want to join two of those together, I can do that using the coordinating conjunctions. So here are some examples. I love to go skiing, comma, but I hate skating. So I want to point out, you put a little comma. You know how originally there's a period at the end of that first sentence, right? We change that period to a comma because the sentence isn't ending, but it is an entire clause. We want to recognize that. So we use a comma plus a conjunction, and then we do our second simple sentence, and then we put a period at the end of the entire gigantic sentence, or what we call a compound sentence. The trees are growing nicely, comma, and the flowers are thriving too. So comma plus a conjunction. He did not get time to finish planting the garden, comma, nor did he get finished fixing the steps as he had promised. So again, comma and a conjunction. We could go to the new movie at the mall, or we could go ice skating at the arena. Now, why would we even want to use a compound sentence? Well, sometimes we want to show the relationship between two sentences. Like when we're using things like but or yet, we're showing contrast. I love to go skiing, but I hate skating. Okay? Sometimes we just want to link to thoughts that are kind of similar. The trees are growing nicely and the flowers are thriving too. Sometimes we want to show that there are two choices and we don't like either one of them using nor. Or there's two choices and they're both optional, right? The other thing is when you're writing, if you do a long string of every single sentence as a simple sentence, it sounds really choppy and it doesn't sound very smooth or flowy because in real life, we don't generally talk in simple sentences. Conversationally, we tend to use compound sentences or complex sentences. So we use them very easily in our speech. Now we're trying to use them in our writing, okay, consciously. Some people are really good at this. People really haven't had to kind of worry about that before. Depends a little bit on what your job is, how long you've been out of school, all those kinds of things. So now we talked about an independent clause. An independent clause is one that can stand on its own as a sentence and has a subject and a verb. Any type of clause always has a subject and a verb. A dependent clause also has a subject and a verb, but it can't stand on its own. Okay? And generally, it will have a subordinating conjunction in front of it. And what happens then is it kind of ends up making the sentence sound unfinished because it doesn't express a complete thought. So here are some examples of some dependent clauses. Unless he brings the money. If she says yes. Before you put in the eggs. Once you finish the car. Since you're already mad. So unless, if, before, once, or since, those are all subordinating conjunctions, okay? And they're linking one clause to another clause with a special type of relationship. You can kind of hear, I think, most people that they don't quite sound right. They need a second half. It's like a teeter-totter, but somebody's cut off one side of the teeter-totter or a seesaw. So here, now I've added a dependent clause to a independent clause. And that creates what we call a complex sentence. So the compound sentence was two independent clauses. A complex sentence is an independent clause plus a dependent clause, okay? Unless he brings the money, I can't buy the groceries. I am going to marry that girl if she says yes. Before you put in the eggs, make sure the pan is hot. We need to mow the lawn once you finish the car. Since you're already mad, I might as well tell you I'm the one who broke the vase. Okay. Now there are a lot of subordinating conjunctions. This is not all of them. This is some of the most common ones, okay? You can only use a subordinating conjunction to join clauses. You can't use them to join words normally or phrases, okay? So words like than, rather than, as much as, whether, whereas, after, as soon as long as, before, by the time, now that, once, since, until, when or whenever, while, who or whoever or whom or whomever, whose or whose ever. You can see a pattern here, right? If or only if, unless, provided that, even if, though, although, and even though. And you can see a lot of these words, they are acting as the center of the sentence, right? Sometimes they will physically be in the center of the sentence. Sometimes they won't. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in a second. Okay, so here are some sentences. We're going to take a look at where is the dependent clause and where is the subordinating conjunction. Now, what did we say earlier about where the subordinating conjunction would be? It's going to be right in front of the dependent clause. Remember that a dependent clause is also called a subordinating clause, and that's why it's called that, because it's got a subordinating conjunction right in front. So, number one, after the game was finished, we went out for pizza. Okay, after is one of those subordinating conjunction. And so this entire part, right up into that comma, is our dependent clause. I did not remember to buy the milk, although I had written it on the grocery list. Okay, although is another one of our subordinating conjunctions, and it comes right at the beginning of the end of the sentence. And so the whole thing after that is a dependent clause. Since he was not there, I was quite upset. So since he was not there, right up into the comma, that's our dependent clause. And I was upset. Now, why do you think there is a comma there? Remember how with the compound sentence, when we joined the two simple sentences together, we turned the period into a comma to show the sentence wasn't over? We're basically doing the same thing there. I will give my best effort even though I am tired. Even though is our subordinating conjunction, and then it is the rest of that sentence is our dependent clause. I'm going to move on just because I don't want to lose short on time today. Okay. So this is a little chart of subordinating conjunctions, and it's just kind of showing you the different types of relationships they can show. They can show causal relationships. In other words, one is causing the other, or one is the reason for the other, as, because, in order, so that, now that, or since. One is where we're granting concessions, although, as though, even though, just as, that kind of idea. Sometimes we're giving conditions like this is only going to happen if, or we only do this provided, unless. Sometimes we're talking about the place, where or wherever. A lot of them talk about time. After, as soon as, before, once, still, till, until, when, whenever, or while. Sometimes we're trying to show a comparison. As though, as long as wide as short as heavy as. And sometimes we're trying to show contrasts. Though, whereas, while, and although. Okay. So we're going to try and create or try to show the types of relationship that's in front of the sentence by putting a subordinating conjunction in the sentence. It could go in the middle between the two, or it could go in the front of the first sentence, or well, the middle will be in the front of the second sentence. By place. The soldiers laid the bombs. They could find hiding spaces by place. I'm going to use the word wherever. So I'm changing that period into a comma, wherever they could find hiding spaces. Now, I can't leave this as a capital letter because it's no longer the beginning of a sentence. Now it's in the middle of a sentence. So I've got to change it to a lowercase letter. By time. Okay, so I want to link these by time. I will work part-time. The baby is due in June. I will work part-time until the baby is due in June. So until, I'm going to put a comma here, until the baby is due in June. And I'm just going to try and I'm going to see if I can draw it instead. So I'm going to put a comma. Sorry, it's a big ugly comma there. I wouldn't have the period there anymore. And this would get turned into a small t. Cause and effect. The plants died. The dogs kept digging in the garden. Okay, so cause and effect. I'm going to turn the period into a comma, and I'm going to use the word because. That's the most common one. The plants died because the dogs kept digging in the garden, right? That's the reason the plants died. Now, the capital T becomes a lowercase t because it's no longer a separate sentence. Comparison. He woke up refreshed. He had not been working for 2 weeks straight. He woke up refreshed. I'm going to put a comma there. Even though. Okay. Even though he had been working for 2 weeks straight. Okay. And the capital H becomes a lowercase h. Now, I've been putting them in the middle because I think it's a really easy way to do it, but it doesn't have to go in the middle. So here I'm setting up a contrast. He wanted to move. His wife was comfortable in their old city. So I could put it in front if I wanted to. I could say something like, even though, okay, even though he wanted to move. Now, this is coming at the beginning. So once again, that capital H has to become a lowercase h. I can put a comma here. Even though he wanted to move, his wife was comfortable in their old city. And again, the capital H now becomes a lowercase because it's no longer a sentence by itself. Conditions, I will make you a nice supper. You pay for all the groceries. Well, the one that pops to mind for me is the word if. I will make you a nice supper if you pay for all the groceries. Okay. Concessions, I will let you borrow the car. You didn't remember to put gas in it last time. I'm going to say even though you didn't remember to put gas in it last time. Okay. And like I said, a lot of us are using these types of sentences in our conversation. We just aren't 100% sure how to write them correctly in our writing. So that's why we're talking about these, okay? So we are going to finish up assignment 12B, writing a rough draft. Okay. So if you are just looking at assignment 12 today, don't start here. Go back and look at yesterday's class number 9 first. I didn't quite get everything finished, but you won't be able to write it just based on what I'm doing here. Now, the biggest mistake I have for this assignment is I will have students hand me in a summary of what happened in the chapter rather than a news story. Okay, well, what's the difference? A summary is often written in a paragraph or what we call the hamburger format, right? There's a big main idea, I give you a bunch of chronological details, and then I close the paragraph. A news article will start off with a headline. There'll be a lead paragraph that has all the important, the first like 5 W questions. Then I'll have a paragraph that has the important details, and then I'll have the less important details. It's a very different format. In a summary, I normally just list events in the order they occurred. But in a news article, I list events in terms of the importance. Things that are the most important go right at the top. In the summary, I'm usually using quotations, if I use them at all, as an example of the dialogue or the relationships between people. In a news article, if I'm using quotations, I'm trying to show different people's experiences or opinions, or sometimes add important information. For a summary, concepts are summarized equally. I probably am going to eliminate examples and details. But in a news article, I might need to include some of those details. The important part isn't summarizing. The important part is making sure there's public safety or public rights over individual experiences. Okay, here's how a summary sounds. This is what you don't want to do, okay? Hang on, I'm going to do a little thing. Don't do this style, okay? Describes only what happens in the chapter, follows the sequence of the chapter, tells me about their thoughts, tells me about their feelings, describe things that only the main character could have seen or heard. Well, in a news story, that doesn't work because you're the reporter. So if there's something that only Jimmy could have seen, it doesn't make any sense for the reporter to be talking about it. So here's an example of a summary. Jimmy panicked when he thought he was going to get searched for drugs or alcohol when he got to Green Star Lake. His parole officer had to calm him down. Jimmy ran into his old friends and talked to them for a bit. Then he ran into some kids who asked him if he was going to burn anything down. Jimmy remembered breaking into the band office and starting a fire. Jimmy's grandma said, "I am so glad to see you." Now, panicked. The reporter doesn't know that Jimmy's panicking unless he says something. How do we know that the parole officer had to calm him down? There's no reporter on the plane. Okay. How do we know Jimmy's remembering anything? We can't see inside his mind. So that's a summary. You don't want to do that style. Okay. If you're not sure how a news article sounds, take a few, time to look at a few news articles online to get a sense of how they sound. They're a really specific type of tone, okay? Some really common Canadian newspapers are Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, the Chronicle, the Winnipeg Free Press. The important thing is make sure you're looking at an article. You don't want to look for anything that's an opinion, okay? Or if they call it an editorial, you don't want those. You just want news articles, okay? Here is kind of my general sense of how a news article sounds. It's going to follow that news article format where the important information comes first. The reporter does not know anyone's feelings unless they tell him. He doesn't know about anyone's conversations if he wasn't in the room. He doesn't know about anyone's actions if he wasn't there or unless somebody else tells him about it. Reporters will usually say who they got the information from unless it will hurt that person. Like if that person's going to get fired from their job for saying it or going to jail, then they might not do it. And reporters will only use quotes that make the story more interesting. So here's an example. The pilot reported that his passenger Jimmy did not initially want to get off the plane once he noticed the cops. As part of the new security protocols that Chief and Counsel have put into place to fight drug and alcohol selling, the police meet every plane and search their bags. Parole officer Frank Jensen confirmed the pilot's statement and said, "Returning to a community after time in detention is very challenging for youth. They are never sure if people are going to give them a clean slate or not." Now, I've got a line there because it's a new paragraph. One of the conditions of the youth's probation is his return to school. The local principal of Green Star Lake High School has made it clear that he has no concerns about Jimmy's return to school. Mr. Baker said, "We are happy to have Jimmy back at school." Now, I wanted to talk about this one sentence. Mr. Baker said, hang on, that we are happy to have Jimmy back at school. Okay. Now, we are talking about feelings here, but it's okay because the reporter is quoting what somebody else said. The reporter couldn't just say, "Mr. Baker is happy to have Jimmy back," because I would want to know, well, how does he know that? Is he just guessing? Is the guy smiling? What's making him think that? Okay. So it's okay to use emotions in a quote, but it's not okay for the reporter to mind read. Make sense? Okay. So this is really, really important. And I'm doing this because there were so many difficulties about how to make corrections in an assignment. So I've separated the original rough draft in assignment 12 with the corrections in assignment 13. So before you do anything on 13, make sure you hand me in assignment 12. This gives me the chance to look it over and give you any kind of feedback you might need about how to improve it. Okay? Especially big things like, oh my goodness, you wrote a summary rather than a news story, or hey, you're talking about Jimmy's feelings here, but we don't know his feelings. Next, you want to make 2 copies of number 12. One is your clean copy to hang on to and look at while you're doing the assignment. And number 2 is to physically do all the corrections on, because that's what you're going to hand in to me for the first part of assignment 13. It's actually more than 10 marks, I think. A lot of people forget this part, and then you lose at least half the marks. So don't do that, okay? So you would be handing me in something like this, okay? So this is basically your clean copy of number 12, which becomes your first copy of number 13, okay? Which you're then going to mark up, okay? Which, fix this properly. All right, which you are going to revise, okay? So I want to go over the little spots of all the parts of a news article you want to have. There is a headline. Local teenager starts a school protest. This is not about Jimmy. This is a different one. There's my headline. Date. They always show the date when it was written. April 20th, 2025. This first paragraph should be my lead paragraph. It should have a very brief summary of the event that includes the important 5 W's and H, okay? In just a sentence or 2. It shouldn't be very long. On Tuesday, April 15th, local teenager Maria Anderson, 18, walked out of Creighton Secondary School to protest second-class treatment of Indigenous students at Creighton High School by teachers and administrative staff, and was followed by an enormous number of other students, both Indigenous and Caucasian. Whew. That was really long. I'm going to put a she here just to kind of make it a proper sentence. Okay. Now, I've just told you the bare bones. I've not added any details. Why did she walk out? What happened? Why did the other students join her? So then in the next paragraph, I start to explain things in more detail. Okay. According to Maria, she received pressure from the principal, Mr. Martin Glibbs, to drop the protest under threat of being expelled. Instead, Maria organized a media event to make her school's situation known to the local town and reservation. This has been going on for too long, said Maria. Another student who wished to remain anonymous agreed. The teachers treat the First Nations students horribly. Now, normally, because a new person is talking, I need to start a new paragraph by leaving a space. Otherwise, it's going to look like Maria's kept on talking. Now, this is not long enough. Yours would need to be much longer. But this is what I'm saying is you hand this in at the end of number 12, but then you want to make sure you've got a couple of copies to start assignment 13. Okay? Where's our time? We're doing okay. We're going to get started on 13. Again, before you go on to 13, check and make sure you've got all these things in your assignment. Is the headline short and catches the reader's attention? Is there a date? Appropriate who? Do the what, when, or where and why make sense? Does the how demonstrate understanding of the event? Are the quotes thoughtful and appropriate to the event? Please don't just write, somebody said hi. That doesn't really help the story. I know that it's in the chapter, but it doesn't make sense for a news report, okay? You got to use quotes that tell the reader important information. The level of detail demonstrates a considerable understanding of the event. The report is written in the third person point of view. We talked about that yesterday if you're not sure what that is, okay? We don't write I or we. We're talking about he or she. And the reporter can quote people talking about their feelings, but I cannot just report it as if I'm able to spy on their thoughts and ideas. If you find that you're writing no, before you hand it in, go back and take a little bit of time to fix those things up, okay? Now, assignment 13 is all about revising your drafts to make sure that ideas are presented in a proper order, right, by the format, to add details, delete any unnecessary information, and ensure that the tone and level of language is appropriate to the audience and purpose. So see how this one's all written up? That's the kind of thing you're going to be doing on your assignment 12, as long as you've handed it in to me first, right? I should have seen it once, clean and nice. Then you're going to make some changes, okay? So I think that the revising stage is the most important part of writing, but I also think it's the most misunderstood part of writing. A lot of times I get people who think it means do the first one messy and do the second one nice and neat. But no, that's not really what they're talking about, okay? The rough isn't like, oh, it's messy. The rough is just, it's my first try, okay? Revising is when I go back, look over my first try, and see how I can polish it up or improve it to make it even better. There are literally hundreds of ways to improve anything you're writing. And we're going to be talking about a lot of them throughout the course, okay? But I'm just going to kind of mention some of the biggest ones right now and walk you through how to do it, okay? Here is the actual assignment, okay? I talk about send me a clean copy of assignment 12 part B if you haven't done it yet. Make a photocopy so that you've got a spot to be able to write it. And then I'm going to show you some possible revisions. Pick at least 6 of them to improve. Underline any place where you made revisions and write the number on it of which type of revision you made, and then I will give you 2 marks for each successful revision. Okay? In general, when you're revising, there's basically 4 main things we can do. I'm going to give you more specific ideas, but generally we are either adding things, removing things, moving things, or substituting things. Okay? The acronym is ARMS. We could add details, examples, and sentences to explain my ideas more thoroughly. I can remove repetitive or off-topic sentences that aren't needed. I can move words, phrases, sentences, or even paragraphs around to reorganize my topics, my arguments, or my thinking so that my ideas are more clear. I can also substitute or trade words, phrases, or sentences that improve the level of my language, make my writing more detailed, descriptive, or interesting. So in my checklist, I've given you some very specific examples. And the reason is because last year when we did this assignment and I was very general, I found people just weren't sure what to do. So they would maybe fix a spelling mistake or maybe fix like one capitalization error and then they just didn't do anything else. So I'm kind of deliberately making people, I'm sort of forcing you to do this, okay? It really is an important part of the course because we do this throughout the course. And I know it can be hard if you're not used to doing this, but if you don't do it now, the course is just going to get harder and harder and harder because the assignments are going to get longer, okay? So here are 12. I think the one that you have in your book right now is slightly different, like a few small little changes here at the bottom. But anyways, number one, add at least 3 sentences to give more information or details. Number 2, add another paragraph to add significantly more details. Number 3, create 2 new compound or complex sentences, either by adding details or joining 2 smaller sentences together. Number 4, add another quotation from a new person, which adds relevant information about the event or their feelings about the event. Number 5, make improvements to the point of view or the objective tone so it sounds more like a reporter. If I have made a comment on assignment 12 that you need to fix those, I will be looking for that in assignment 13, okay? Make improvements so it follows the inverted triangle news story format, okay? In other words, for this, hang on a sec. Okay, not a summary, okay? Like I said, this is the biggest mistake students make is they hand me in a summary. We don't want that. Sorry, strange writing, my apologies. Okay. Improve the vocabulary or word choice for at least 3 words. Add at least 2 adverb phrases that help indicate time, manner, cause, or location for an action. You can improve at least 3 usage errors by adding articles such as a, in, or the to singular nouns, or create subject-verb agreement. Sorry, I don't know why this, it doesn't quite spell right. My apologies. Number 10, fix any sentence errors from assignment 12, like run-on errors or comma splice errors. This one, incomplete sentences, I made one all by itself. And then I think I have fix any punctuation or capitalization errors, and also one on fixing the spelling errors, okay? So here I've got my clean copy, and what I'm going to do is look at this and look at that list and try to figure out ways to improve my my article, okay? I know that sometimes if you're not used to writing a lot, it can feel like, I don't know, it's perfect the way it is. But if even professional writers can spend time making their work better, I think that we can too, okay? So here, what I've done in red, you can see spots where I added revisions according to this list. And right in front of it, I put the number of the revision so I can find it, okay? So number 6, I made improvements so it follows the inverted news story format. Okay. I felt like I hadn't explained everything, so I added a bit more information to the lead paragraph. Okay. Here, 8, ever since the walkout. Number 8, I added an adverb phrase. Number 7, of giving into these demands. I improved the vocabulary word choice. Now, I'm doing it in color. You would probably just be easiest to do it in underlining, right, like this. Now, if you want to do it in color, that's fine, right? But I know not everybody's got access to that kind of stuff. Here, number 2, I added a whole another paragraph. Then number 3, I created some compound or complex sentences. I would still need to do a few more things, okay? This is just part of it. But this is what I mean, okay? Yours might be a little bit marked up, especially if you are handwriting. So I'm going to go back a step and say, let's say you're doing this with here. You might be, maybe you, let's see, I'm trying to think of a word I want to say. Um, Let me see, what can I say? This has been going on this, okay? I want this to be this racism, maybe. This racism, okay, has been going on for too long. Now, mine is a little bit messy because I'm using a cursor, okay? But you can see how I'm doing my revision right on there. So now that's my vocabulary one. So vocabulary is number 7. So I'm going to go back and write a number 7 on there so that the teacher knows what I've been working on. Okay. And if you just add a whole other sentence, I would just underline it and explain again what number I was doing. Number 1, I'm adding some more sentences, that kind of idea. Okay. So you're going to hand me this in and it's going to be roughed up, but it'll be okay because you'll have the numbers and the numbers will help me to read it. This is just for part A. I'm going to point this out. This is just, okay. Sorry, hang on a second. Assignment 13, part A. Okay. We are going to have a part B. Part A is going to be a little bit messy, but that's okay because I will have part B to look at that will be nice, clean copy. Now, I want to point out, this is what I used to get a lot of last year. It's almost exactly the same word for word. The only thing that they have changed is they changed the word this, sorry, the to this. I'm gonna, and then they changed this lowercase thing. Hang on. I don't know if I can make it work here. All right, it's not letting me do it, but I will. Here we go. They changed this. That's it. That doesn't count as revised. You've neatened it up, you've edited it, but you have not revised this. Okay, you haven't made any significant changes to the words or the content or the meaning, which is what we're doing in revision. Okay. This is a completely different thing. Okay. Here on this side, well, I'll read it and you see what you think. This is my news story about chapter 1 in the book Jimmy Comes Home. Jimmy is on the plane flying home, but he does not want to get there at all. He gets scared when he sees the RCMP and the police at the airport. His probation officer is able to calm him down, but Jimmy is convinced that he's not really welcome here and that they are looking for a way to send him home. Now, what is wrong with this? The biggest thing right away is this isn't a summary format. It's not a news story. It's a summary. I need to fix that right away. The other thing is I need to change the tone, right? I'm talking about me and I'm talking about his feelings, but I don't know those things. So here's my rewrite. Officials stand at the airport waiting for the community youth to arrive back home. There was some delay in disboarding, which a pilot later reported to be due to the passenger refusing to get off the plane once he saw the police officers out front. Now, obviously, I'm not finished writing, but that sounds a lot more like a news story now. Okay. I'm going to show you how to do each one of those strategies if I have time, but I am running out of time right now. So I'm going to kind of wrap up. All right. Don't think there's anything else we really need to talk about. If you want to get started on that, you can. If you want to wait till tomorrow when I finish up, that is fine as well. Like I said, it's a good idea to hand me in assignment 12 first. So if there's major problems, I can help you. Some of the things that are major problems. Sometimes people don't write about chapter 1. They write about a different chapter. That makes it very hard to mark because you haven't followed the assignment. Sometimes people write a news story about nothing to do with the book at all. That I usually won't accept, okay? Because that's the whole point, is that you show me you understand the book. Sometimes they'll include a little bit from the chapter, but they make up so many details that it really isn't quite what we're trying to do. So those are major problems that you're going to want to fix before you get to assignment 13, because assignment 13 is worth a lot of marks. Okay? If you have anything you want to ask me about, feel free to message me or give me a phone call. Otherwise, I will be back tomorrow and we will do our last class for this week. Take care.